Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2 of Continental War, which if you did not watch the first episode is highly derived from Fall of Kerbin, which will be linked in the description below. Now, in our last turn, we set up our forces to prepare our assaults, where today we'll be executing our first attack on Aurelia. So let's get on with my turn. Now to start my turn, we are launching 3 KE-6A Lances to go engage some aircraft stationed at a forward operating base that Aurelia has put at the end of Mountains Pass. And we are going up there to clear the airspace to allow my attackers stationed on the runway currently to go, well, bomb the tanks stationed there. Now these are armed with 2 wing-mounted Shabaks, so they should be quite effective at taking out those enemy fighters. Now after our wingman form up with us over the Colonium and now Aurelian Mountains as we head towards the Aurelian forward operating base, hoping to be able to defeat those enemy fighters. Well, and they also have 2 attackers stationed there as well, but we are hoping we can clear the airspace so our attackers are safe when they are bombing their tanks. After getting in range of the Aurelian fighters, we turn left and try and draw them away from their anti-aircraft fire. And after doing that, we tell our wingmen to release and we dive down on the 2 Aurelian fighters. A bunch of 20mm fire flies by. Unfortunately, this KE-6A right next to me gets struck in the wing by 20mm Hispano fire and falls into the ground below. Now as the dogfighting ensues, these Aurelian fighters are proving themselves to be quite a good adversary, as we do get guns on here, but it managed to evade, quite luckily. But after a little bit more dogfighting, we managed to get into this little turn fight, a little more of the split S as we pull down, get guns on, and fire and rip a wing straight off of the OE-6, sending it plummeting into the ground. Now, I am quite surprised that Xenos only put 2 fighters here and his 2 attackers, and split his forces between the north and south. If he did not do this, then we would have much more trouble trying to take over this base. As we see here, as we're watching that plane stumble into the ground, 2 of Xenos' attackers actually slam into the ground, chasing my other KE-6 that was shot down earlier, which means we only have to deal with that singular fighter, which proves itself to not be too much of an issue. We get into a dogfight with it here as we do a little turnaround. The AI tries to shoot it down but doesn't really manage to do that well, so I decide it's best that I take control and fire some rounds into it, and as it comes to turn around, we light it up, put a few rounds into the bottom of the aircraft, and blow it straight up after flying through the debris. Now, that was quite an effective attack we have now done. We have cleared out the Aurelian airspace over this forward operating base, and we only lost 1 fighter, so I think that was quite an effective mission, although we won't have that much air cover over the north for next turn, but that should be well enough to attack this base now. Now, moving over to the south, we watch as this OE-6A Typhoon scrambles into the air. Now again, what I said earlier, I don't really know why this was put here. I think Xenos should have just launched 6 fighters last turn because he really could have, and I think that would have been much more effective defending the airspace over the north, rather than just putting the singular fighter here. I think he should have just put some 20 mils to defend it, and that would have done a lot better. As you see here, this aircraft being outnumbered by 2 of my fighters, we get into this little head-on here, and we open fire, and soon enough, the OE-6 is struck in the wing and falls into the hill below. Now, if he put 6 fighters in the north, there would have been no chance I would have been able to attack. I probably would have tried, but I would have lost a lot more. As we see here, the OE-6 slams on the ground, but somehow survives. But I do decide the best of it to turn on mouse aim flight and turn around and actually start to strafe out the little aircraft just to make sure it's dead. This, now that I look back on it, this might have been a little bit overkill, but I just really wanted to make sure it was dead. That's really all. Here you can see we put some 20 mils into it, and the whole aircraft just goes up. So this has been quite an effective air mission. We've only lost 1 fighter, and we've taken out, 5 Aurelian aircraft, so I'd say that is quite effective. Now moving back over to the south, we land at Sia's Guard to cover the supply truck, so next turn, just to make sure it doesn't really get strafed out. We can't really put these fighters anywhere else, so we have to put them in the south. And I know this might be a little bit of waste of 2 fighters, but it's all we can really do with them this turn. And we come in for a landing, and we touch down quite smoothly. Now moving back up to the north, we deploy our 3 attackers to go strike the Aurelian tanks sitting at this forward operating base. Now with the threat of 20mm anti-air, I decide at first I'm just going to try and level bomb and see if this is quite effective, so I drop an 1,000-pound bomb and a 500-pound bomb on that first tank. And as we go to switch to one of our other fighters, we see why we should be dive bombing instead, as those bombs wildly miss. So next up, I decide that I'm going to risk getting close to that AA, and I'm going to dive bomb. I want these bombs to be as accurate as possible. I need to destroy some of these tanks, as Xenos was able to deploy one more tank than I was this turn, and I don't want these engaging my forward operating base next turn. That would be quite bad for us. So we drop one 1,000 bomb on the first tank and try to drop a 20 or a 500-pound bomb on the next, as some 20mm flak comes our way, but it's really far behind the actual tank, so I think he probably should have put his AA closer to his tanks, or just moved his tanks closer to the forward operating base, because it's really wildly inaccurate from that range. But as you see, we do destroy one of the pythons, and it seems we only damaged the other one. But now I line up another dive bombing run as we go and drop another 1,000-pound bomb on another one of the pythons, and instead of bombing that other python, I actually decide to hit the supply truck over here. If Xenos does attack next turn, I want to make sure his supplies are cut off, so I'm going to take that supply truck out and make sure it can't do anything next turn. We do get fired on by 20mm AA as we watch that other python absolutely get destroyed. And, well, it's quite inaccurate, it's still far away, and the 500-pound bomb strikes the supply truck, and we just leave with basically impunity. Now, if Xenos had put his AA closer to his tanks, or put his tanks closer to the AA, or even if he just used that supply truck to actually build a 40mm emplacement, I think we would have been afflicted. At least maybe one of these planes would have been shot down. But luckily for us, that does not happen, and we switch to one of his pythons here that was damaged, and we see the entire turret was blown off, so this will have to be written off. Now moving back down to the south, we deploy the CSS Guardian, another Ophelia-class cruiser, and a supply ship to support the CSS Ophelia in going down and securing the island chain for our future plans, which I will not disclose now because we might have Aurelian spies watching us. Now again, moving back up to the north, we deploy the CSS Paladin to further bolster our northern fleet and support our carrier group up here for future turns. Now moving way up back to the north, I have deployed a forward operating base where I've moved up our medium tanks and landed our two remaining fighters from the northern engagement earlier to defend and prevent the Aurelians from pushing into Valley's Guard. We also deploy 4 tank destroyers with 88mm anti-tank guns, hopefully to hold. I know these could be flanked out easily, but I want to deploy a lot of force here to make sure that Aurelia does not actually get through here. But yeah, hopefully it'll do well. We also deploy some 20mm emplacements and a 37mm SPAA with our remaining ground launches. And that is the end of my turn. I do hope y'all enjoyed. Xenos' turn should again be coming out soon after this one. It shouldn't take too long. But I really do hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you next time.